She told me it was just one night, but the silence after that night spoke louder than anything she ever said. I didn't know that night would change everything. It all started with a simple message, so casual it almost felt ordinary. "Hey, do you want to meet tonight?" she wrote. I hesitated for a moment, my heart skipping a quiet beat, because I sensed something beneath the simplicity of her words. I was 22, young enough to feel everything so deeply, yet just old enough to understand the weight of things left unsaid. She was 30, calm, composed, but something in her voice when we finally spoke hinted at a storm beneath her surface. Her long black hair fell gracefully across her shoulders as she laughed softly, a laugh that felt like both comfort and a warning. I watched her, fascinated by the way she existed so effortlessly, while I quietly observed every flicker of emotion she tried to hide. The night began like any other evening we might have had. Street lights blurred past as we walked, sharing small talk that barely scratched the surface of what was really between us. I noticed her subtle glances, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, and I realized these small gestures spoke far louder than her words. As the night deepened, silence became our companion. We didn't need constant conversation. The quiet stretched between us, heavy with unspoken feelings. Every pause felt like a question, every sigh held a story. I was painfully aware of my own heartbeat, wondering if she felt the same tension, the same anticipation that made my chest ache. By the time we reached her apartment, I knew nothing would feel the same afterward. The air had changed. It was charged with something I couldn't name, a mixture of longing and fear. She looked at me, her eyes softer than usual, and whispered, "It's only one night." But I already sensed it wouldn't be. Not for me, not for either of us. Her calmness made me anxious, but I couldn't look away. Inside her apartment, the light was soft, almost golden, spilling over the furniture and the quiet corners where shadows lingered. I noticed her freckles catching the light, her gentle smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She moved with such grace, yet there was a tension in her posture, a subtle wall I just couldn't seem to cross. We sat together on the couch, distant yet somehow connected. I tried to speak, but my voice faltered as if the gravity of the moment had stolen my words. She seemed lost in thought, occasionally glancing at me, making me wonder if she felt the same turmoil I did. Time slowed down. Every sound, the faint hum of the refrigerator, the soft tick of the clock, even our breathing became magnified. I noticed the subtle ways she moved closer without actually touching, leaning slightly in, her presence both warm and completely unreachable. I wanted to ask her why she had invited me here, but I was afraid of her answer. Every detail of her calm, the subtle tension in her hands, the fleeting sadness in her eyes, told me something wasn't as simple as she was making it seem. And still, I couldn't pull away. Something in me needed this night, even if it promised heartbreak. I thought I understood her. I was so wrong. We talked about memories, small fragments of our lives, laughing softly over stories that felt intimate. I thought I could read her, understand her. But every smile she gave me hid another layer I couldn't reach. She was like a book with missing pages, beautiful, but incomplete. The tension between us was palpable. A gentle touch on my arm, a fleeting glance, a silence that lasted just a little too long. Each gesture carried a weight I could feel in my chest. I tried to memorize every single moment, knowing subconsciously that this might be the night I'd replay in my mind for years. Her calm words, "It's only one night," echoed in my head, but they felt hollow. I realized then that sometimes people say what they want, not what they actually feel, and I began to sense the distance that would always remain between us, a distance measured not in miles but in the truths we never said aloud. I never expected her silence to speak so loudly. As the night deepened, she suddenly grew quiet, more so than before. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw her vulnerability, a fleeting crack in the calm exterior she always maintained. I'm scared," she admitted, almost too softly for me to hear. And in that instant, everything changed. The night no longer felt like a fleeting moment. It became a mirror, reflecting our own fears, our regrets, and all the things we couldn't bring ourselves to say. I realized then that this night wasn't just a moment between us, it was a revelation. Her calm, her composure, even her smiles were all just shields, and I had been looking for warmth behind walls. My chest ached with empathy, and my own silence grew heavier, mirroring hers. I wished I could hold on to her forever, but life doesn't allow for that. We stayed close, but not touching, sharing a space filled with unspoken words. I wanted to ask her to stay, to change her mind, but I knew the truth. Some moments are not meant to be claimed, only remembered. I remembered every detail, the way she laughed softly, the light glinting in her eyes, the way her hair fell across her face. Every small gesture was etched into me, and I understood that what I felt was more than attraction, it was the aching realization of impermanence. Her calmness, which had once fascinated me, now felt like a bittersweet echo of what could never fully exist. I silently mourned a future that would never be ours, while holding on to the warmth of her presence for just a few fleeting hours. I thought the night was over, but the truth was just beginning. Morning approached, soft and quiet. The city outside was alive, but inside her apartment, time felt suspended. She smiled faintly, as if carrying a secret I could never guess. "I have to go," she whispered, and I felt a sudden, profound emptiness in my chest. Not sadness, not anger, just a hollow longing for something that had never truly existed. And then she left, closing the door softly behind her, leaving a silence that screamed louder than any words ever could. I sat there for a long time, absorbing the weight of the night, realizing that some connections leave their marks not through presence, but through absence. Days passed, and her absence became a presence. Every thought, every memory, returned to that night. I realized I had been clinging not to her, but to the possibility of what she represented, a depth of connection I might never find again. She had left, but her impact remained. I learned that sometimes a single night can teach you more about yourself than years of ordinary life. That night had been a mirror, reflecting my own fears, my own longing, and a quiet ache of understanding someone so profoundly, even if they leave. It wasn't just one night. It was a lifetime packed into a few hours, a lesson in love, silence, and a distance that can exist between hearts. And I understood, finally, that some endings are